In this video, we're going to take a deeper dive into embroidering specific products, like a sweatshirt. For many parts of the world, fall weather is here, which is prime time for making sweatshirts. So I figured the timing would be right for a video like this. Let's talk about how to stabilize these things. Sweatshirts are pretty thick, or at least thicker than a t-shirt. They're also going to be heavily worn and washed. So if you remember the mantra, worn, not torn, you know that you need to use a cutaway stabilizer. This ensures that the stitching doesn't fall apart after many wears and washes. The thing about cutaway stabilizer is oftentimes it's pretty thick stuff, and what's left behind, even if trimmed appropriately, is gonna irritate the skin. It'll also leave a really weird border around the design and basically make it so that the garment doesn't really lay correctly. That's why I'm gonna use no-show mesh. It's pretty lightweight stuff, but once it's trimmed, it's not really going to irritate the skin as much as you'd think. Also, it has a pretty nice drape. Unfortunately, because it is a lighter weight cutaway, you probably need to stabilize it a little further with something that's not going to permanently add bulk to the finished product. That's where the tearaway comes into play. I use one layer of tearaway stabilizer just to make sure that everything is going to stay intact and not really move once it's in the hoop. This is the layer that you'll basically put on the very bottom and rip it away when done. Now, because sweatshirt material has a little bit of plushness to it, I want to put a protective layer of water-soluble stabilizer on the top. This prevents the threads from sinking into the plushness of the sweatshirt material and keeping your design looking nice. It's not required, but you'll probably regret it if you don't add this. Now, based on a tutorial that I did recently about embroidery stabilizers in general, we're going to create an embroidery sandwich. To summarize that, you're basically going to take your tearaway, your cutaway, then your product, and top it all off with that water-soluble stabilizer. All of this goes into your hoop. Now, I'm using a very strong magnetic hoop by Mighty Hoop, so it can actually hold all of that thickness of material and the several layers of stabilizer. If you don't feel comfortable with hooping with a traditional hoop, you can actually use basting spray and just float your work. Just understand that it could still shift on you while you're stitching out. Before I hoop my sweatshirt, I want to secure the tearaway and the no-show mesh to each other with a little bit of basting spray. This keeps them from shifting under the sweatshirt. You can buy these really neat stabilizer tools for Mighty Hoops that help keep the stabilizer on the base of the hoop while sliding it into something like a sweatshirt. They're extremely helpful because otherwise I'd be sitting here trying to line up the hoop, the stabilizer, and the sweatshirt before snapping on the top half. If you don't have one of these helpful tools, you can just use painter's tape. Slide the hoop to the inside of the sweatshirt and position it where you want the design to go. Then set the water-soluble stabilizer on top before securing the top half of the hoop. If your hoop is directional and you'll be using an embroidery machine with a free arm, make sure the top frame is oriented such that the bottom of the sweatshirt is going to be facing the machine. Don't forget to remove the stabilizer tool before taking it to the machine. I almost always forget that part. Don't be like me. If you found this process to be cumbersome and annoying, you can always do what I did and get the Mighty Hoop hooping station. Let's take a look at the design we'll be using for the sweatshirt. You can do denser designs with sweatshirts because the fabric is sturdier, thicker, and won't buckle or pucker when you're doing a fill. This design is from my mental health line that I have been planning for some time now. The irony being that my mental health has not been strong enough for me to actually do the thing. I wanted it to have a more sketched look, making it jagged and less dense. The software you see here is Hatch Embroidery 3 Digitizer Edition. Achieving the sketched look is super easy in Hatch. You start by increasing the spacing of the tatami fill pattern, making sure the travel on edge checkbox is unchecked. Default spacing for tatami fill is 0.4 millimeters. I bumped my fill up to 0.6 millimeters, but you can increase that as you see fit. I also advise decreasing the stitch length to 3 millimeters from the default 4 millimeters. This makes the stitches more secure as we'll be removing the underlays. More on that in a bit. Then under the Effects tab, I turn on the hand stitch effect and feather both edges. You can play around with the width and the raggedness settings to get the look that you want. You can also adjust adjust the angle of the fill to pivot the feathered sides. That's one of the things I like about Hatch, is being able to preview these changes as I'm making them. The last thing you need to do is go into the stitching tab and remove all of the underlays. I finish off the sketch look with a triple stitch outline. I never really liked coloring within the lines anyway. By the way, this sketch technique is really good for t-shirts, because as you can see from everything that we've removed, the designs are not too dense. Okay, let's take it to the embroidery machine. I'll be stitching the design out on my Ricoma MT-1501. I've loaded the design into the machine, but there are a couple of changes I need to make first. Since the sweatshirt's bottom is facing the machine, I need to flip the design 180 degrees so it doesn't stitch out upside down. The 1501 is a multi-needle machine, so I also need to tell it which needles to use for which colors. It's so nice when you don't have to swap out threads for color changes. Don't forget to do a quick framing pass to make sure the presser foot isn't going to hit the hoop. Once I have everything dialed in, I can start the design and let the dulcet tones of the fabric stabbing lull me into a false sense of security. Congratulations! You now know how to embroider a sweatshirt. For more tips, tricks, and tutorials, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.